to sit down, and hey, the floor is open to questions or whatever, and it don't have to be about fishing, it can be about anything, you know. Yes, sir.
Do you sometimes find using too heavy a weight can make the bait drop too quickly, or?
Well, that's a good point that you bring up, okay, because there was one year I fished with Potomac, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago, that I thought I knew what I was doing. I was getting ready for a tournament, and man, I was really on fish, but then the last couple of days I went out before the tournament itself, my pattern that I had, I kind of lost it. I'm like, what's happening? And we went to a Friday night meeting, because I do Fish with the Men, so we always do a dinner on Friday nights and have a Christian message. I heard one of the other guys said, man, he said, you know, we were fishing today and we didn't get a strike until that bait dropped quickly. And it just, bingo, light bulb went on. I was using, before that, I typically use 3/16 ounce weight. Reservoir, tidal water, doesn't make a difference. That's my favorite weight that I start with. But what I did is I bumped it up to 3/8, and as soon as that bait, I dropped it, okay, on that grass edge, and she went so fast, down past and everything like that, the bass could not handle it. It was a reaction strike. My original presentation during the week was slow, and they wanted it, but the change was they wanted a reaction strike. So just changing the weight slightly. So you have to do that thing. Just like sometimes you might need to take that weight off and just fish it without no weight. How many people swim a worm? A 6-inch or 8-inch or 10-inch worm? How many people swim it? I do. You know why? I never did before until 3 years ago. I'm on the James River. I'm like, you know, I know there's fish on this bank. I've caught them before. I just don't know what I'm doing wrong, and I just had an attitude, and I just flicked the thing out there. I'm like, I didn't want to throw it there because I really had an attitude. And I started just kind of reeling in, just thinking real slow, and just wham! I'm like, bingo! Light bulb was on. So the rest of that whole bank, 75-yard stretch, we started tossing the bank and just barely reeling in with the red bug power worm, and we caught a lot of fish. I'm like, okay, I want to remember that one. Yes, sir.
I'm from PA, and
Pennsylvania.
we have a
We don't hold that against you, but go ahead.
we have a man-made lake pretty much. It's fairly huge, but it's kind of an odd fishing area for me because I went out there. Some people say they caught catfish, and then some people say they caught sunnies. It's one of those odd places. I don't know if I let my dogs run in there, but they've gone out there. And for times I've been out there with a bunch of fishers, I've seen guys with these huge boxes doing all kinds of things out there. I'm like, none of us caught anything. I don't know if it's the time of day or the difference between something natural versus built.
You know, God, man, you know, that's a hard answer, and the only thing to do is try to tell you keep a positive mental attitude, PMA.
Right.
Lake Anna sometimes. Lake Anna is sometimes I refer to as a Dead Sea. I can go on Lake Anna and I can have some heydays. I mean, I won it last year with 22.5 pounds. I've been out there this year and bombed one fish, you know, and I couldn't figure it. Friday I had, you know, some nice fish, not maybe a 22-pound bag, but I thought, well, I'm going to finish in the, top 10, at least get a small check. It didn't happen. Did I get arrogant? Did I get cocky? No. I think did I fish it right? Would I change my different presentation? I don't think I was fishing slow enough. I thought I was fishing slow, but I don't think I was fishing slow enough. The answer to your question is that it all depends upon when you were fishing, what time of the year, there's all kinds of different conditions. When you're out there fishing, you have to think about the condition. What's my condition? I got a bluebird sky day. What does that really mean? That's high pressure front. Okay? High pressure front have an effect on bass when they feed or how they feed. I really believe that. So you have to correlate a lot of things through your mind. Okay? And it's hard. Fishing, a bass has a brain the size of a green pea. All right? But here we are, intelligent human beings. God granted us great intelligence, and we go out there, just like you just said, and we'll sit there and fish 8 hours a day, and we'll catch one fish, and we beat ourselves up because we can't figure it out. Well, who's really the smartest one out there? But you have to take, in your case, you know, the fish could have been suspended. But like you said, the guys had tackle boxes, they had all kinds of stuff. You just don't know, okay, until all of a sudden, bingo, the light switch goes on. You've done something, and then you got to repeat that, okay? And then when you repeat that, then you got to take and expand on that. That really makes a professional. All right, that's why I'm not out there on the big league. I can't compete with them. I can compete locally and I can compete with you folks and stuff like that, but I'm not fishing 24/7, 365. And unless you do that for a living 24/7, 365, you cannot get out there on that Elite Series and expect to catch a check. It ain't gonna happen. Okay? Kevin Van Dam did not get where he's at today, okay, by being a weekend angler. All right? Or anybody else out there. And those pros, you watch them, all right, just like on Douglas Lake, you know, or when they come down to the James River. We had several locals that the pros didn't beat. Now, last year, Randy Howell won the James River, and he followed up this year with the Bassmaster Classic. But typically, we got a big railback tournament coming up on the Potomac for a 3-day tournament out of Smallwood State Park. It's an FLW ran event. It's going to be out of La Plata. They usually have some big things going on right before the weigh-ins and after the weigh-ins at the Walmart store there in Plata. So if you get a chance, you know, I know you got to drive north and to go south, but you know that's something you can watch there. But there'll be some locals in it, and I know a few of them. All right, that'll be in it, and they'll be in the top 10, top 15, if not winning. But you'll have some pros in it too. You know, so you know it's hard telling. It's like when I was fishing with James. I'm watching my grass and I'm seeing all this bait and I'm seeing fish. I'm seeing dash lines. That tells me that's fish, you know, cutting through and chasing to the shad and everything like that. I'm like, man, you know, you don't know if that's bass. You don't know if that's, you know, crappie. You don't know if that's catfish. You don't know if that's chain pickerel. It could be anything. Just because I see an arc doesn't mean it's always a bass. You know, so I'm throwing spinner bait, slow rolling spinner bait through it. I'm slow rolling my spinner bait through it. I'm feeling myself hitting the shad. I'm like, come on, man. Bass ought to be eating. It wasn't happening. I pull out my drop shot and I said, look, okay, I'm going to set my drop shot about 18 inches. All right, and boom, fish on. And they got off. All right. Put it back out there and said, fish on into the catfish. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, then I done it again with catfish. I said, I'm out of here. Because once you get into a mess of catfish, you know, it's all over.
Is there a time frame before you start changing out your baits?
You know, you have to have confidence in any bait that you use, okay? And you have to give it the opportunity to try to do what you want to do with that bait, okay? For example, my spinner bait, I love slow rolling the spinner bait with a turtleback blade or what I call a big Colorado blade. I love that thump, okay? And in any type of stained water, and but typically your tidal water is a little bit more stained than your reservoirs, that thump, okay, I'm telling you, they feel that thump and they see that flash. And I like gold blades, you know, when I'm running them. If the water's really stained, then I'll use a big white thumping blade with a small red blade in front of it. Everybody's like, yeah, right, and I'll call on fish that way. You know?
I didn't know what you just said.
And then I go to a white skirt. White is either seen in darker stained water than any other color there is. You know, and I used to be able to tell you, you know what? Nah, man, I want chartreuse, I want red. No, I was way off left field when I thought all this stuff. You know, but it's taken me years of fishing with a lot of people, and a lot of people's been young guys like this man here. You know, because I used to do nothing but kid things. Okay, through the Federation Nation or to TBF, take them out and be the boat captain or educate them. I end up finding learning more from these kids than, you know, than they probably learn from me. So it's just also what we call seat time. You do have a disadvantage, okay, from fishing from shore. But man, Gulfport, Mississippi, where I station, I go in the back bays, okay, and the canals and stuff like that. And I take my family. I have my girl and her little bouncy thing, and I have my, you know, open face reel. And one day I saw these Popeye mullet, you know, they come into this little pocket in this bay, and man, they were just having a heyday. And I'm like, Popeye mullet, that's known as Biloxi bacon. Okay, it's an oily fish, but it's good fish, and they fry it for breakfast and stuff like this. I'm like, I gotta catch some of that. How can I catch some of that? You know, because they're a good fighter too, and everything. They got small mouths. They you know, they feed on top of the water. They're not bottom feeders. They stay in schools. You know, I've seen people cast nets on them. I was like, I gotta get some of these. So I finally had me a weighted cork, and my son had some marshmallows. He was probably 5, maybe 4, and he carried a few marshmallows just because he wanted to eat marshmallows, right? I'm like, man, give me one of these marshmallows. Got a real small hook. Set my cork and no weight between it. The cork, I think, was weighted, but I set it for about 4 inches. I put a piece of that marshmallow on it, and I chucked it out there, and all of a sudden, wham! I'm like, holy, I'm on! And I sat there, and me and friend had a blast. So you know, you've got to use your creative imagination too and try things from the shore because you are at a disadvantage. You cannot cover the water, and especially if your family's out there, you got to be careful too. But, I mean, that's how I've done that.
Now, from a boat, like how do you think you should move from a boat? Like I have a boat at home that moved around, but I didn't know how often I should have moved. If I moved too soon before giving me a chance.
Watch, you got to play that by ear just like you do when you present something. But dude, I covered all water Saturday. I burned 20 gallons of gas and a Mercury Pro XS, which gets good gas mileage. Okay, that's a lot of gas being burnt. I covered a lot of areas, but I was focusing on certain areas. I was focused on mouth creeks or inside the first turn of a mouth creek because that's where the fish will stage before they come out to the big water. When they come out of these tributaries. So I was covering a lot of water. Again, you have to play it by ear. You need to cover water. Unless like I said earlier, there's a few places on the Potomac that I'll sit in a 100-yard stretch and fish it all day. Try to crank up my boat. All right, but there's other areas I need to move, and it's that gut, gut thing. Like I mentioned on curve, I went in back of Rudge Creek, Butchers. I was way back in Butchers. I was way back in the flat. There was no boats around. I mean, I was back in the creek. Okay, and on practice day, I was shaking off the fish. It was just such a blast. I'd pitch that spinnerbait up to the shore. I was probably from here to that wall. I'd pitch it up there against different things, and I'd barely, roll it out, and fish would hit it, and I'd just let them run with it, and I'd shake them off. And a few of them, that I actually saw with my glass and stuff, I mean, I had some fish like, please hold up, And I'd check out some other things, a few points and stuff like that. Tournament day, I'm about 22. I'm like, oof, So I'm hauling, and I get back here, and I catch me a 12-incher first, and hey, just why they broke the ice in wide open. And I didn't have a bite in that whole creek or that pocket for the rest of the day. And I stayed in there too long. I pulled back at the second break line. What we mean by the second break line, you have your bank, then immediately comes out and she'll drop again. So I fished that second break line. I fished out further. The deeper water was only like 5 feet. I went way back up the creek further. I mean brush, lay downs, you name it. Where these fish go, I had no earthly clue. But here's what I did pick up on. The water wouldn't move. And that's when my bite shut down. Fish do love when current moves. All right, and you got to take advantage of that in these reservoirs. You have to be in the right place at the right time. And then I started thinking back what happened on Friday, pre-fish day. What time was I here? I was going through all these conditions in my mind, and I'm saying, Jim, it's 11 o'clock. You got 3 hours. If you don't move now, okay, and go make it happen, you're out of this thing. All right? So off I took off, and I went to 2 bridges. The reason why I went to 2 bridges, they call walk. They call it walk.
Current break.
They call it a current break. They call them naturally. They squeeze that water down, okay? And I went to 2 of them that specifically the wind was in my favor, and the wind was making a current. All right? And I pitched in there the first time. I'm, whoa, 3 times. I was like, thank you, Lord Jesus. I'm back on, I'm focusing now. And I went down that bank, and I must have caught 15, 20 fish. All right, but I never could get decent bites. I had 9 pounds, and I was just like, had my 5 fish, but I think if I'd have went there that morning, and there was another bridge that another boat was on, they were just normal family fishing, and I just left them alone because they were sitting on one of the best spots that I wanted to get to. But I don't crowd in on anybody, whether they're a competitor or a family. I just don't do it. We have the rule that you have to stay away from any boat 50 yards anyway, unless you ask permission. So I just, but if I could have gone down the other bank, I think I would have picked up 1 or 2 more. But so my decision that day, okay, I didn't know they were running water. I was too stubborn. I didn't make the move fast enough. All right, and I could still make the move without even going down and doing what I did, because I know out there on the main lake points, I was catching fish Thursday from practice. A few far in between, but I knew what type of points and how much of a slope I was catching fish off of with Carolina rigs and slow rolling spinnerbait. I didn't go there. This was playing games. But you live and learn. Yes, sir.
When you're talking about colors, like for clear water, what color would you recommend?
Well, again, I have to, it's not a loaded question, but, what's clear? Is it gin clear? Is it, visibility to 2 feet, 3 feet? I try to use more natural colors in cleaner water. But then again, I can reverse that rule and say that on Potomac, I'll take watermelon, centipede, all right, I'll put it on a 3/16 Texas rig, and I'll toss it out there in the most dirtiest water, all right, around scattered grass, and I'll catch fish. That's one to keep in your bank. My favorite color though is watermelon candy, I'll be honest. I hold nothing back. Now, I never had me and my fishing buddy, he's a retired master gunner sergeant. We hold nothing back, because you still got to go out there and fish. I mean, you still got to go fish it. You still have to fish it. I mean, everybody has to, go out and still try to catch them. You can tell me exactly what you're doing. Hey, Jim, I got him at this location. Here's a GPS. I was doing this type of bait. I had this type of rod. And I can go home to my garage. I say, okay, now Joe said this, okay. And go out there. Oh, okay, I'm right on the spot, I think. My GPS coordinate says this. However, how much were you zoomed in when you hit your waypoint?
You can be in the same boat, trying to do the same thing with the same guy, which was us last weekend. And I didn't learn until Sunday afternoon. It took me all day Saturday, half day Sunday to figure out what he was doing.
So, it's hard. It is really hard. What were you doing? But that's why, I enjoy
Slow. It was slow. Yeah. That's what it was.
And I think that, on Anna, I really think we were fishing slow. I mean, I was counting 10 or 15 seconds on my jerkbait on Anna. When it was the time we were fishing. I don't think that's slow enough.
No, this is the dome last weekend. No, it's just we were too fast. I was too fast.
Well, that's something else too on the chick. Being a partner, driving home, we said, man, you know what? We never did dead stick anything. And what I mean by dead stick, and they probably familiar with the term, and this gentleman over here is, you throw that bait out there and you let it sit. You don't move it. But that takes patience. Because you want to say, okay, I shake it a little bit. Well, if I just move it a little bit, or if I raise up, but you know what? Go to a swimming pool. If you ever stay at a hotel, wait till everybody else goes to bed, and they still got the lights on in the swimming pool. Look, he's laughing because he's been there and done it. Right? You go out there, you take your rod out to the swimming pool because it's still got the lights on in the swimming pool. And of course, now remember, you have to replace your line because that chlorine will destroy your fishing line. But pitch your bait out there, raise that rod tip 6 inches and see what happens to that bait and how far it moves. You need to learn these things and key yourself, because then when you're fishing, it's second nature. When you flip with a bait caster, watch how that bait falls. It's going to come right to you by at least 3 feet. Maybe more if there's current, like tide. All right, depending on how fast that tide comes in. Because your bait caster does not freeze full like a spinning reel or spinning rod. And so you learn these things over the years, and that's what makes you become more proficient. Just like how we learned all how to shoot in the military. Of course, I grew up with my dad hunting and fishing, but we also learned how to be proficient in our jobs. How? Sink time, education, training, instructions in day-to-day, whether I receive them from my supervisor or from a friend, that education ends with life. If I leave you with anything tonight, instructions is day-to-day that you take in the field, but education ends with life. And the day you tell me that you know it all, I'll say nothing else. That's why I used to tell people when I taught my rate when I was in the military. Education ends with life. I'm always learning something. And you can always learn something from everybody. It's our kids too. Sometimes us parents are too hard-headed. Or maybe it's the kids, they address it the wrong way. That was my issue. I wouldn't have an issue with listening to my boy, and he was quite a fisherman. But I had a way of how he addressed me. So that's my opinion. We'll go there. But any other questions?
What other colors do you think are predominant on the Potomac? You said watermelon candy.
Really, I've done watermelon candy. I tell you what, I like that pocket crawl black blue. I don't go anywhere without blue fleck worm. I do not care. You go to Walmart buy them, you go to any store and buy them, but that's that Berkeley Parabaic water or blue fleck worm. I just don't go anywhere without it. If it gets tough, I can pull it out and still catch one. You know, I even use it as a trailer sometimes. It all depends, but I can't go on with blue fleck worm. You know, with the Potomac and your James River and your Chickahominy River and things of that nature, like shallow diving crankbaits. You know, for the cost, you can't beat bandits. Bandit 100, they dive 2 to 5 feet. All right. Now, depending upon the type line, 10-pound line, you're going to go a little bit deeper than 5. Okay, especially fluorocarbon black, fluorocarbon line sings, mono floats. So all these different things you learn, but you can't go wrong with blackback chartreuse typically because of the water clarity. I use square bills when I'm fishing. Tidal waters. So I can, deflect off of things. I really think more strikes come off of deflection. All right, if I'm not using a crankbait and not bouncing the bottom, then I'm not going to get a reaction strike that I think I'm going to get. You have to also go out and experiment. 1 year, 2 years ago, I'd go out there for 2 months, May, June, July, 3-month time frame, maybe sometime in August. Actually, this is after I had my heart bypass. I had someone else take me out in my boat, and I sat in the back, and I couldn't do too much, but I knew I could at least, barely, pitch it out there. I couldn't do the overhand yet and all that. But we weren't getting any bites, and I reached down and got red dye, and I dipped my centipede, green pumpkin centipede, or 3-inch green pumpkin Cincos, and about a 1/2 inch of that red dye, and dude, we had a heyday. And that worked for me for 3 months. I tried it, last year, off and on. Didn't get a bite. Now why? I can't tell you. I truly cannot tell you. Was it the area I was in? I went back to the same areas even. So I don't know. Sometimes you have to also focus on what the fish is telling you and what the bass is telling you too. The conditions change, okay, and they change throughout the day, and you have to adapt. That makes the better fisherman over the average fisherman. Okay, when fish are stopping to bite, but you can take and adapt and figure out what they're doing so you can pull 1 or 2 more fish. All right, I can go out there and have a 13, 14-pound day on the Potomac, but that is not going to let me win a tournament. If I want to take a place at any tournament today and win or cash a check, I better have anywhere from 17 to 25 pounds. Period. I know that before I go out there. If I cannot have that 17-pound deck bag or plus, how's I going to go? All right. But what I'm saying is, you got to find that kicker. Go out there and catch 12, 13 pounds is good, but you got to find that kicker. And that kicker to us professionals, we call 5-pounder rub. You need several of those kickers. Okay. That last year when I caught that 7 1/4, I had all kinds of 3-pounders. All right. I had about 15 pounds. When I put that 7.25-pound baby in that bass boat and I went back to those scales, my son was pumped. He couldn't believe it. I broke my arm and he gave me a high five. We were fishing against Jacob Prosnick. All right, and a few bunch of guys who were raising money actually for his father. His father was diagnosed with cancer, stage 3. We had a charity tournament, and we finished in 4th place with 17 pounds. But it's because we had that kick.
The dye you use, is that like something specifically for fishing, or that ever cooking on
It's made fishing dye.
Okay.
You can go back across shop and get it in chartreuse. That's one of my favorite colors everybody does. I got a chartreuse, I have orange, I have red, I have pink. I mean, I've tried it all, fire tires they call it. Yes, sir.
I got 2 questions. Which stick baits do you recommend? Because I see there's Gary Yamamoto, Bass Pro, Yum.
All the baits. You're talking about the stick baits. He's talking about stick baits. Gary Yamamoto calls them Cincos. Bass Pro Shop calls them something else. Young comes, I think the Young product, they call them dingers or something maybe. So you have different name brands, okay, but they're stick baits. It's a piece of bait that's tapered on both ends. One end is tapered more narrow than the other end. It gets thicker in the center. It has what we call the worm sac area in the center where it's clear, where you have no rings. Some of them have big rings, tight rings. I mean, all right, and all those things do is displace water. All right, some are heavy, some are light. Some are thin, some are thicker. I mean, all different types of manufacturers do them. It all depends upon how much salt they put in them. Salt is what makes the buoyancy, okay, and what makes the fall rate and everything. But there's also other chemicals in there, and I don't, I know about Gary Automotives personally, but I used to also work for, be sponsored by another company, and they use pure plastic. It's called Deep Creek Lures. They use pure virgin plastic, and they put no additives, no nothing. They put nothing, all right, in their baits, and I have a higher float rate. It's the only difference. Every bait will float to some consistency. Get you an aquarium. I got me an aquarium that's Sarah, it's not because I'm keeping goldfish. Okay, because in the winter months when things get really bored, I go out to my garage. It's somewhat heated, all right. It never gets below 50 in my garage because of insulation, and I start playing with things. Well, what type of baits float better than the other? On what type of shaky head, that I use, and this and that, So you all play with them. Mine, I like Cinco's, okay, but they're $7.49 a bag at most places, okay. I get a little bit of discount when I buy them in bulk, but I just like the consistency of them. I like the fall rate of them. That's but no particular figures.
And then I know sometimes 6, 7 inches, some are 3 inches. When do you use different length?
You gotta let the bait, you gotta let the bass tell you. I mean, you gotta let the conditions of the bass tell you. Sometimes typically you can get by with a 5-inch, okay? I have a single version at home made by JDC Baits, and I used to be pro staff for him. He's no longer in business, but he used to make them 10 inches for me, all right? And I used a big old number 7/0 hook, and I've caught bass on them. And believe it or not, I've caught 6-inch, 7-inch, 8-inch bass on a 10-inch Cinco, okay, or a stick bait. So, okay, bass are aggressive, okay? You know what? They are not afraid of anything bigger than they are. That's why I'm saying, I am worried about the ecosystem, okay, the Potomac and all the different this invasive species that come in. But, bass are pretty aggressive too. All right. Yes.
In time of the invasive species like the snakehead,
Yeah.
what do you recommend to try to get one of those?
Oh man, you can use a fluke, you can use Cinco's. I caught them in frog. I took a winter warrior out 2 years ago and put him on a crankbait in back of Grassy, I think it's Massey Creek or Grassy Creek, right off the Aquapond. Yeah, Massey. And he was throwing a brown back orange bandit and busted 2 of them. They come fish tailing out of the water like, check this out, But the snakeheads, I've caught them just about everything. The first couple of years when they were hitting the water, I used to catch a lot of them. Now I don't catch them. That's fine with me. That's less I got to kill, unless I got to mutilate. But I think you can catch them on anything. Again, you have to be there, and stuff like this. But you can also watch for snakeheads. They have to come up to breathe before they go back down. They have no lungs. Or no bladder, excuse me, they have no bladder. They have to come up to breathe before they go back down. Yes, anything else?
You see points is a big factor on the Potomac? I mean, on a reservoir, you fish mainly.
Yes, I do.
points,
I think points have a factor. But the points, like I was talking about earlier, could be, I have a grass bed. Now, how long is this grass bed? Like on the Chick River, I think one of the things I was doing wrong too is I used to have better luck on the smaller grass beds. I was fishing awful big grass beds. And a lot of us were doing that. I forgot about the smaller grass beds. So if I could find a grass bed and it had irregular lines on it or whatever, all of a sudden she's going pretty straight and she bumps out, that's a point. Not if the grass makes it, or if the log makes it, or if it's a natural point on the river. Now there are several places on the river that are points that in early spring, okay, before that grass starts growing, I will be backing off of them and I'll be throwing crankbaits on them. So but points do make a difference, I think. Any other questions? Gentlemen, I appreciate your patience with me. That's what we have for tonight. Please tell your friends to come back by. Okay, they got a lot of things going on at FishingCommunity.Org.